And Ed is here with us, quite excited. Ed's first time on the Politics Hub, and he's brought his charts with him.
Lots of charts.
It wouldn't be an Ed.
There'll be more charts in future, hopefully, if you invite me back. But yeah, no, I mean, this is kind of the big story, isn't it? This is interest rates in the UK and just how much they've gone up. And you kind of get a sense, don't you, when you look at this, about how sharp that climb has been. You know, that was COVID when we went down to 0.1%. But what's also interesting, Sophie, is just kind of looking at the difference in what was previously expected for interest rates. So if you look at kind of previous expectations, a lot of people thought that it was going to be going higher and higher. That's kind of well above 6%. And obviously, you know, this is not an enormous difference, but kind of where we are now, we are talking about maybe things going up a tiny bit more. But when you actually look at that, so that's kind of the market expectation for what will happen for interest rates in future, that's basically a plateau, isn't it? So that's kind of the big story where we are. You know, a lot of people thought we're going even higher, but now we're up there, which...
This is really good news then, right? If you've got a mortgage, you're looking at this and you're thinking,
yeah. If you've got a mortgage, it is. Obviously, we have to remember, you know, a lot of people have savings, and for them, this period was just awful, and that, you know, that goes back kind of way beyond the axis there. So, you know, that period for savers and for pensioners and for those looking at their annuities was terrible. This is a lot better. But what concerns me is, you know, a lot of people, particularly those who have mortgages, particularly those who have just got onto the housing ladder, this is incredibly painful. And if you're just going from, you know, having quite low-level rates to fixing onto something higher, that's going to be quite tough. But, you know, when you look across the rest of the world, I mean, one other thing that we can do is we can compare the UK with other countries, and if you compare it with, like, the Federal Reserve, that's the US as well, compare it with the ECB, so the Eurozone, that's the kind of light blue one. We're all in a kind of similar position at the moment, so the Bank of England basically just doing what those other central banks is doing and saying that is an enormous amount of economic medicine that you've just imposed on the British, the American, the Eurozone people. And that medicine takes quite a long time for people to feel it.
And quite interesting as well, I guess, there's been so much criticism from the Bank of England, so quite interesting, I think, to look at this and think, oh, hang on, it's not like they're a massive outlier here, is there? So...
Not really. And actually, the interesting thing, OK, if you compare those lines, the bank was actually just about the first to move, so you can barely see it there. But they were the first of all of these different central banks to move. So they like to talk about that little bit there.
Yeah, they like this bit.
But in practice, you know, the Fed was going up a little bit faster than the bank, and then they were kind of chasing. And if you look at inflation numbers, and if you invite me back on another time, we can show similar inflation chart, what you see is the UK kind of going up like that and other places starting to come down. So
you'll definitely invite back on, don't worry. You made it. You got through the audition.